packet, and today is Thursday, August 6th. Greetings to all residents, to all staff, and to all guests. We continue to have 6 active cases of COVID-19, and the one is a resident, lives at King's Crossing, and the other are staff, and of course they are home recovering. And right now as we speak, between today and tomorrow, additional tests are occurring at, Sister Net House, which is here 2nd floor at Episcopal Church Home, and the 4th floor of the Gardens. And that's because the most recent confirmations of staff have come from those 2 houses. And so that's why the additional testing is occurring in those 2 places, Sister Net House and 4th floor of the Gardens. So we'll be getting those results, of course, shortly. Sometimes it's just 1 day, sometimes it's 2 days. But these days, seldom is it more than 2 days presently. You know, I still occasionally see some people or hear some people not taking this seriously. And I would just put this out there. I think pretty well it's an established fact that we now have over 160,000 dead Americans from COVID-19. So that's the cold reality. And of course here in Minnesota, it's something like close to 1,700. I think that's right. I haven't looked at that statistic that recently. So it's a small fraction of what we have throughout the entire U.S. But 160,000 dead Americans is a lot of dead Americans from COVID-19. And so it is real. And as I've mentioned before, whether you believe it or not, the virus doesn't care. The virus is going to seize any opportunity it can. And the virus doesn't care if you are young or old, or if you are careless or not. I mean, if there's an opportunity, it's going to seize it. So it's real. And so we have to really be vigilant. And we have to put in place, we have to always be vigilant with the things that we know for the most part work. They're not 100%, but they for the most part work, and that is social distancing and remaining at least 6 feet apart, and then wearing your masks at all times, frequent hand washing, and if you have any symptoms, self-isolate and get tested. So those things are really vital, because again, I could have it and not know it, and you could have it and not know it. And if I have it and not know it, and I'm not going to have any symptoms because just luck, right? That doesn't mean that you wouldn't have symptoms if I give it to you. It could mean the worst for you, right? It could mean hospitalizations. It could mean being on a ventilator. It could mean being in a coma, and it could mean ultimately death. We don't know. That's the mystery. That's the vexing part of this virus. And so it's so important that we keep in place all these precautions, that we take it seriously. It really matters, particularly in a campus like Episcopal Homes, where we are serving elderly, where we're serving seniors. All right, enough preaching. So good to be with you. I will not be here tomorrow, Friday. I am taking a day of vacation. Looking forward to that. And Mary Ruthio, she will be here in my place at 1:30. So I will not see you until Monday at 1:30. So take care of yourselves and enjoy the very nice weather. And now for some closing words from Phil Rose.
Thank you very much, Marvin. So on Tuesday, I mentioned a book called Humankind, A Hopeful History. And this is written by a Dutch sociologist by the name of Rutger Bregman. And the background of the book is the radical idea behind the book is that most people deep down are pretty decent. And today I want to delve deeper into what he has to say. And specifically on Tuesday, I mentioned his 10 keys for living. And I'm going to delve into one of those. And the reason that I'm doing this is that a lot of us are struggling right now. There's so much happening, and it's leaving us, we're not quite sure where our grounding is. In fact, this week I heard that Michelle Obama, on her podcast, made it clear that she has been suffering from a depression over these last few months. She calls it a low-grade depression. And my feeling was if Michelle Obama can announce that and own that, then us mere mortals can feel better about where we are with things. And so I think that there's a couple of things when we get to that point of feeling depressed. First of all, always feel free to talk to a professional, especially if you think you need to. Reach out to the chaplains, reach out to anyone here, and they can help you with that. But the other is to develop a practice of hope and to train your compassion. In that epilogue of Bregman's book, he has these 10 keys to live by. And I'm going to focus on number 4, which was temper your empathy and train your compassion. And this is what he has to say about that. At the risk of going a little bit long, but I think that what he has to say is so good that I want to get it in his words. The Platinum Rule calls not for empathy, but for compassion. To help explain the difference, let me introduce the Buddhist monk, Matthew Ricard, a man with a legendary command of his thoughts. Not long ago, Ricard was invited by neurologist Tanya Singer to spend a morning in her brain scanner. Singer wanted to know what happens in our brains when we feel empathy. More important, she wanted to know if there was an alternative. To prepare, Singer had Ricard watch a documentary the evening before about lonely orphans in a Romanian institution. When sliding his brain under the scanner the next day, Singer asked him to recall their vacant eyes, their spindly limbs. Ricard did as she asked, imagining as fiercely as he could how those Romanian orphans felt. Okay, and evidently they don't want me to talk anymore. Okay, I apologize for that. We just went to a rechargeable battery system, and we may not have gotten in the habit of it, but I think we should be changing the batteries every day. So I'll make sure that folks know to do that. So anyway, I want to go back to this. So she had him think about those images of those orphans and to have empathy for them. And his brain lit up in different parts. Empathy mostly activates the anterior insula, which sits just above our ears. But flashing now, whoops, sorry, I skipped a page. Singer asked him to recall their vacant eyes, their spindly limbs, and he did. An hour later, he was a wreck, because that's what empathy does to us. It's exhausting. In a later experiment, Singer asked a group of volunteers to spend 15 minutes with their eyes shut, evoking as much empathy as possible every day for 1 week. This was about as long as they could endure. At the end of the week, all participants were more pessimistic. One woman said that when she looked at fellow passengers in the train afterwards, all she could feel was suffering. After her first session with Ricard, Singer decided to try something different. Once again, she asked the monk to think about Romanian orphans, but this time, he wasn't to imagine himself in their shoes. Rather, she wanted him to apply the skill he'd spent years perfecting, feeling not with them, but for them. Instead of sharing in their distress, Ricard concentrated on calling up feelings of warmth, concern, and care. This is sometimes referred to as loving kindness meditation. May you be well. May you be safe. May you recover. Ricard concentrated on calling up feelings of warmth, concern, and care. Instead of personally experiencing their suffering, he kept himself removed from it. On her monitor, Singer could instantly see the difference because wholly different parts of Ricard's brain lit up. Empathy mostly activates the anterior insula, whereas the compassion stirred up the corpus stratum and the orbital frontal cortex. So, what is he saying here? Basically, he is saying that we can develop compassion Matthew Ricard has worked on that for 30 years in his Buddhist meditation practice. But we can develop compassion that is good for us, and science is teaching us is actually good for others as well. And we'll cover that another time. Probably not in a 1:30, because it's a really interesting but deep conversation. So the idea for us today is to develop hope by working on developing our compassion. And you can do that with a simple loving kindness meditation. As you think about victims of COVID or other disasters, perhaps today you're thinking about the people in Beirut. It's, of course, a terrible tragedy. And to just take on their pain does them no good, does us no good. Maybe it's important to do that to make sure we connect to it, but then to move beyond that, to move towards a position of compassion and wishing them recovery. And then on top of it, if there's something that you're able to do, maybe it's write a check to a relief organization or reach out to someone that you know from that community, whatever the case may be. So, sorry for the interruption there with the technology issues. Work on developing that compassion, and I will see you at 2 o'clock when we are doing our Remembering Our Neighbors service, where we will remember all of our neighbors who have died in the month of July. Until then, be well.